It started with a single, almost unbelievable report that dropped like a bomb across the globe. Just minutes ago, the royal family released a statement that left fans, critics, and the media completely stunned. Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, had been hospitalized, and sources claimed she was on oxygen, fighting for her very life. The images were scarce, the information fragmented, but the whispers, the leaks, the rumors, they all painted a picture that no one could ignore. Could this be true? Was Meghan Markle really in that kind of danger? And if she was, what did this mean for the royal family, for her family in America, and for the millions of people around the world who have followed her life with fascination, curiosity, and, in some cases, admiration? Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. You might be asking yourself, how did it come to this? Meghan Markle, once the American actress who captured hearts worldwide, married into one of the most scrutinized families in history, seemed untouchable in some ways. She and Prince Harry carved their own path, stepping back from royal duties, moving across the Atlantic, and building a life that many believed would be insulated from the endless glare of the media. But this recent news shows that even distance, even money, even careful management of public appearances cannot shield someone from the pressures, the dangers, and the unpredictability of life, or perhaps from the very family she once trusted. Let's pause for a moment and consider just how serious this is. The royal family rarely makes statements about health crises, and when they do, it is never casual. It is measured, careful, and deliberate. That a statement was released so quickly that the wording hinted at urgency is a signal that this is more than just a routine hospital visit. Something unprecedented is unfolding. And while the palace has kept the details tightly controlled, insiders are leaking fragments, and the world is hanging on to every single word, every cryptic post, every photograph that might offer even the smallest clue. Now, some of you might be wondering, is this simply another example of media sensationalism? Could the story be exaggerated, as so many others in Meghan's public life have been? Or is this, as many insiders hint, a situation far more serious than anyone outside the palace walls could imagine? The timing, the intensity of the leaks, the rapid mobilization of medical teams, it all suggests that this is very real, very urgent, and potentially life-changing. Even for a figure who has been through intense scrutiny, the human element here is undeniable. The idea that Meghan could be struggling, vulnerable, and reliant on medical care instantly shifts the narrative. No longer is this just about celebrity, about royal gossip, or about tabloid battles. It is about survival, about family, and about what happens when the pressures of public life collide with the fragility of human health. Imagine, if you will, the scene in that hospital room. The air tense with urgency, monitors beeping, the oxygen mask a constant presence over Meghan's face, obscuring expressions but amplifying the stakes. Medical staff moving quickly yet cautiously. The Duchess, someone who has always projected composure, facing an experience that strips away image, status, and control. How must that feel? To be someone whose every move has been scrutinized, whose every appearance analyzed, and yet suddenly be confronted with something that renders all of that irrelevant? It is a level of vulnerability that most of the public can hardly comprehend, and yet it is the same vulnerability that unites us all as humans. And what of the royal family? How do they respond when one of their own, even someone who has distanced herself from day-to-day duties, faces such a crisis? The palace, as we know, operates on a rigid system of hierarchy, protocol, and public messaging. Internal panic must be carefully balanced with outward calm. Decisions about media statements, hospital visits, and private family meetings are not made lightly. The fact that this story has broken in the way it has, so fast, so dramatically, suggests there are undercurrents, tensions, and dynamics at play that the public is only beginning to glimpse. Imagine the backroom conversations, the urgent phone calls across time zones, the coordinated efforts to manage perception while attending to what is a very real, very human emergency. And yet, while the royal family is engaged in these delicate maneuvers, the world outside is speculating. Social media is ablaze. News outlets are scrambling to confirm the story. Fans are sharing prayers, fears, and personal stories. Critics are questioning motives, past behavior, and even suggesting conspiracy. And somewhere in the middle of it all is Meghan Markle herself, caught between the expectations of her public persona and the urgent reality of her situation. How does one navigate that? How does someone whose life has been meticulously chronicled, dissected, and debated respond when the stakes shift from reputation to survival? It is a question that is gripping millions of people worldwide. But there's more to this story than just the immediate medical crisis. Because if you look closely, if you listen to the whispers and the leaks, you realize that this moment is connected to a history of pressure, betrayal, and tension. From the very beginning, Meghan's life in the royal family has been a high-stakes balancing act. From navigating public perception to dealing with private disagreements, from facing relentless media scrutiny to confronting her own personal struggles, every step has carried consequences. And now, with her health hanging in the balance, it forces a reckoning. Not just for Meghan herself, but for the family, the media, and the public that has invested so much in this narrative. Consider the timing. Just hours before this news broke, insiders claimed that Meghan had been feeling increasingly unwell, showing symptoms that worsened rapidly. Emergency medical intervention was reportedly required, and yet details are scarce. Why the secrecy? Why the urgency? The palace, it seems, wants to protect both Meghan and the family's reputation, but in doing so, it fuels speculation. Every gap in information becomes a spark for rumors, theories, and questions that no one can answer definitively. And that's where we come in. As observers, as fans, as people captivated by the ongoing saga of Meghan Markle, we are left to piece together fragments of truth, while the reality on the ground remains intensely private, intensely real, and potentially life-altering. So, what exactly does this mean for Meghan's immediate future? Will she recover fully? How will this impact her relationship with Prince Harry, her children, and the broader royal family? And perhaps most importantly, how will the public perceive her after this ordeal? Will the sympathy outweigh the criticism? Will this crisis alter public sentiment in ways that no one can predict? These are the questions that linger in the air, unanswered, as the story continues to unfold in real time. And the answers, when they come, could change everything, not just for Meghan, but for the entire narrative surrounding her life and legacy. There is also the human element, the intimate reality of someone facing a health scare in the public eye. Imagine lying in that hospital bed, knowing that millions of eyes are watching, that every breath, every movement, every small sign of weakness or strength will be interpreted, judged, and reported on. Imagine the isolation, even with loved ones by your side, when every moment is filtered through cameras, social media, and the constant hum of public scrutiny. It is a level of stress and vulnerability that few people in history have experienced, and yet, Meghan Markle is living it right now. And that is why this story is not just sensational, it is profoundly human. As we move forward in this video, we are going to dive into the details, the whispers, the insider accounts, and the shocking revelations that the palace, the media, and even Meghan herself may not have fully disclosed yet. From private hospital moments to family tensions, from international reactions to historical context, we will explore every angle of this unfolding drama. And while some details remain murky, the overarching narrative is clear. Something extraordinary, something heart-stopping, is happening, and we are witnessing it in real time. But before we get there, we must ask ourselves, what does this moment say about the intersection of fame, family, and vulnerability? About the way we, as a society, consume stories of public figures while often forgetting their human reality? And about the ways in which a single health crisis can ripple outward, affecting relationships, reputations, and the very structures that we thought were stable? These are not just questions for Meghan or the royal family. They are questions for all of us as observers, as participants in a world where privacy is scarce and every moment is amplified. And just when you think you understand the gravity of the situation, the story takes an even darker turn. Because what we have learned from sources close to the palace suggests that Meghan's hospitalization is not just a medical event. It is a flashpoint in a series of escalating tensions that could redefine her role, her legacy, and her very life. There are whispers of conflicts reigniting, of secrets being revealed, and of decisions being made that could have consequences far beyond what anyone expected. And that is where our journey begins. In a hospital room, with Meghan Markle on oxygen, and a world holding its breath. The news broke like lightning. One moment, the world was scrolling through routine updates on the royal family, and the next, headlines screamed. Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, was in the hospital, hooked up to oxygen. At first, the details were sparse, scattered across social media, gossip columns, and frantic whispers in the corridors of Buckingham Palace and private residences in California alike. But as fragments of information trickled in, the gravity of the situation became clear. This was not a simple checkup, not a minor scare, not another fleeting moment of media hype. Something serious, possibly life-threatening, was unfolding, and it was happening right now. Imagine the scene. A hospital in Los Angeles, polished floors reflecting the fluorescent lights above, medical staff moving with a mix of urgency and precision. The air was thick with the low hum of monitors, the rhythmic hiss of oxygen, and the quiet, tense conversations of nurses and doctors. Meghan Markle, known to the world for her poise, her elegance, and her public composure, lay there, vulnerable, fragile, and dependent on the very air around her. Her oxygen mask covered her face, a stark reminder that even those who seem invincible are subject to the whims of health, circumstance, and fate. Questions immediately began circulating. How had it come to this? Was it related to her past health struggles, or something new and unknown? And, perhaps most pressingly, why had the royal family released a statement so quickly, breaking their usual protocol of measured silence? The answers, at least initially, were elusive. But the pieces, when examined closely, suggested a sequence of events that was both alarming and, in some ways, inevitable given the pressures Meghan had faced for years. Sources close to the palace described a sudden deterioration in Meghan's condition over the previous 24 hours. It began as fatigue, a general sense of malaise, which quickly escalated into labored breathing and severe discomfort. By the time the medical team arrived, it was clear that immediate intervention was necessary. Emergency transport to a hospital with specialized facilities followed, and that is when the world learned what many feared. Meghan Markle was on oxygen, struggling to stabilize her condition. The speed and secrecy surrounding her hospitalization added to the suspense. While the public had glimpses through cryptic social media posts and half-confirmed reports, insiders confirmed that hospital staff had restricted access, not only to media, but also to unauthorized family members. Only a select few were permitted inside, and those who were had been sworn to confidentiality. This level of precaution is rarely seen, even for public figures of Meghan's stature. It hinted at the seriousness of the situation, as well as the intense desire to control both medical outcomes and public perception simultaneously. And yet, even in these tightly controlled circumstances, leaks emerged. Rumors of her condition spread across news networks, online forums, and social media platforms. Some claimed she had been unconscious for hours. Others reported that her oxygen levels had dangerously fluctuated. Each claim, while unverified, added layers of fear and fascination. Suddenly, the story wasn't just about health. It was about control, secrecy, and the fragility of life in a world where privacy is practically non-existent. Meanwhile, the royal family was thrust into action. Traditionally, health crises involving senior royals are managed with extreme discretion. Statements are carefully worded, appearances are choreographed, and rumors are suppressed whenever possible. But Meghan's case was complicated. She is no longer a working member of the royal family, living thousands of miles away, yet her ties to the institution remain strong, complex, and publicly scrutinized. The palace had to balance concern for her welfare with the realities of public interest, media frenzy, and potential fallout from a story that could dominate global headlines for days or weeks. Behind the scenes, sources described a flurry of activity. Advisors were making phone calls to confirm medical updates. Senior royals were in emergency consultations, discussing who would travel, who would speak publicly, and what the family's official line would be. Messages were sent to Meghan's closest allies, ensuring that key family members in the U.S. were informed. Every detail mattered because, in a situation like this, missteps could be magnified exponentially. And magnified they were. News outlets around the world were now tracking every development, turning an already intense personal crisis into a global spectacle. The human aspect of this crisis cannot be overstated. Meghan, who had spent years navigating the intense scrutiny of both American and British media, suddenly found herself in a position where she had no control over her narrative. She had to trust medical professionals, rely on the judgment of those around her, and face the unrelenting curiosity of millions. In a world where appearances often define reality, she was now stripped to her most fundamental vulnerability, a human being in need of help. And for those of us watching from the outside, it was a rare and sobering reminder of just how fragile life can be, no matter how public or powerful the person experiencing it may seem. As the hours passed, more details began to emerge, though still selectively. Sources claimed that the medical team monitoring Meghan's condition had called in additional specialists to ensure she received comprehensive care. Her oxygen levels were reportedly stable at times, but there were moments of critical concern that required rapid response. The doctors involved, according to insiders, were cautious in their statements, emphasizing that while immediate danger had been mitigated, the situation remained serious and required continued observation. It was a delicate balance. Reassure the public while conveying the truth, maintain hope without minimizing risk. The media's response was instantaneous. Social media exploded with speculation. News outlets ran continuous updates, some verified, others less so. Hashtags surged, tweets poured in from fans and critics alike, and YouTube videos analyzing every potential scenario began circulating within minutes. The global attention was overwhelming, creating a feedback loop of pressure, expectation, and anxiety. For Meghan, this meant that even in a hospital bed, her life remained under a microscope, every breath scrutinized, every minor movement interpreted and reported. Yet amid the chaos, some insiders hinted at more than just medical concerns. Rumors of tension within the royal family, of past conflicts reigniting under the pressure of the crisis, began to surface. Could this hospitalization be a catalyst for confrontation or reconciliation? Was there a deeper story behind her sudden health decline, one intertwined with stress, past trauma, and the weight of public life? While nothing could be confirmed, the mere suggestion of these possibilities added another layer of intrigue and drama to an already intense situation. And the questions kept coming. Why did this happen now? Could it have been prevented? Were there signs that were ignored, either by Meghan herself or by those around her? And perhaps most importantly, what would this mean for her future, her family, and the delicate balance she had tried to maintain between public scrutiny and private life? These are questions that cannot be answered immediately, leaving a cloud of suspense that keeps people glued to updates, discussions, and analyses. Every new report, every snippet of information, is examined for hidden meaning, for confirmation, for clues that might reveal the full story behind the shocking hospitalization. Through it all, the image of Meghan on oxygen became a symbol of vulnerability, of human fragility, and of the immense pressures faced by those in the public eye. For supporters, it was a moment of empathy and concern. For critics, it was a prompt for speculation and conjecture. For the royal family, it was a crisis requiring delicate management, swift decisions, and careful messaging. And for the world watching, it was an event that combined drama, suspense, and emotion in a way few stories ever do. As the hours continued to pass, a clearer picture began to emerge. Meghan's condition, while serious, appeared to be stabilizing. Doctors were monitoring her carefully, and she was reportedly responding to treatment. But despite these positive signs, the situation remained tense, unpredictable, and fraught with potential complications. Every heartbeat, every lab result, every subtle change in her condition was a point of focus, a source of speculation, and a narrative thread that could take the story in any number of directions. The world was watching, waiting, and wondering, what would happen next? And just when it seemed the story could not become any more intense, an unexpected development arose. A leak from within the hospital hinted at an incident that had occurred during Meghan's treatment, something minor in appearance, but deeply symbolic in the broader narrative of her life. While details remained vague, the implication was clear. Even in moments of care, nothing about Meghan's life is ever simple, private, or predictable. Every action, every event, every decision carries weight, resonance, and consequence. The hospitalization, in essence, is just the beginning. It is a catalyst for revealing truths, for confronting tensions, and for uncovering aspects of Meghan Markle's life that have long been obscured by public perception, media narratives, and the controlled environment of royal protocol. As we move forward in this story, it is crucial to keep in mind that what we see on the surface is only a fragment of the reality, a fragment that is compelling, dramatic, and shocking, yet incomplete. The full picture, the hidden layers, the untold details are where the real story lies. And that is why this chapter, the shocking hospital revelation, is only the opening act. It sets the stage for what comes next, the reactions of the royal family, the whispers of insiders, the unfolding drama of media scrutiny, and the very real, very human struggle of a woman fighting not just for her health, but for her place, her dignity, and her future. The moment the news of Meghan Markle's hospitalization reached the royal family, an immediate wave of tension and urgency swept through Buckingham Palace. Even for a family accustomed to public scrutiny and constant media attention, this was different. This wasn't just a scandal, a misstep, or a fleeting rumor. It was a personal, immediate, and deeply human crisis. The Duchess of Sussex, a figure who had been both celebrated and vilified, was suddenly facing a life-threatening situation, and the family had to respond, not only as public figures, but as relatives with real emotions, fears, and concerns. Inside the palace walls, the atmosphere was intense. Advisors scrambled to gather accurate information, doctors' updates were relayed in hushed phone calls, and senior royals convened emergency meetings to discuss the implications. Protocol dictated calm, careful communication, but behind the scenes, there was panic. Courtiers whispered, aides ran between rooms, and the usually controlled world of royal messaging teetered on the edge of chaos. What would they say publicly? How much could be revealed without igniting speculation or criticism? And most importantly, how could they protect Meghan while managing the world's insatiable curiosity? The reaction from King Charles was swift yet measured. Sources suggest that upon hearing the news, he immediately contacted his closest advisors, requesting detailed updates on Meghan's condition and the hospital situation. Even as monarch, Charles faced the delicate challenge of balancing personal concern with public responsibility. Reports indicate that he was deeply concerned, not just for Meghan's health, but for how the crisis might impact the family's image, the ongoing narratives surrounding the Sussexes, and the perception of the monarchy in the media. His advisors, aware of the potential fallout, suggested careful public statements, reassuring the world without revealing sensitive details. Prince William, Meghan's brother-in-law and a central figure in the royal family's operations, also took immediate action. Sources suggest that William was in constant communication with both Charles and other senior family members, coordinating responses and ensuring that the family was aligned on messaging. But tension reportedly ran high. William has had a complex relationship with Meghan, marked by moments of tension and periods of forced civility. Now, with her health in jeopardy, he faced a personal dilemma. How to show genuine concern while navigating the political and emotional intricacies of family dynamics. Private texts, calls, and encrypted messages reportedly flew back and forth across continents. Senior royals, including Princess Anne and Prince Edward, were briefed on the situation, asked to remain discreet, and instructed on how to respond if approached by media or family allies. Sources suggest that even the usually composed and was visibly shaken, expressing concern not only for Meghan but also for the broader implications of a crisis that could dominate headlines for days, if not weeks. Meanwhile, Prince Harry, Meghan's husband, was reportedly in near constant contact with the hospital and the royal family. His journey from shock to action was immediate. Sources close to the couple describe a flurry of private calls, rushed flights, and deep worry. Harry, who has often been publicly vocal about protecting Meghan from scrutiny and harm, now faced a situation that challenged every strategy he had ever employed to shield her. The emotional toll was intense. Family tensions, media attention, and genuine fear for his wife's health combined to create a pressure unlike any he had previously experienced. But it wasn't just worry, it was the pressure of protocol. The royal family operates on a rigid hierarchy and an unspoken code of conduct. Decisions about who could visit, what could be said, and how the public narrative would be managed fell under intense scrutiny. Advisors debated statements, drafts were revised multiple times, and every phrase was weighed for potential implications. One wrong word could inflame speculation, invite criticism, or worsen public perception. And all of this was happening while Meghan, at that very moment, was relying on medical professionals and family members to navigate what was, for her, a life-or-death situation. Behind closed doors, whispers began to circulate about past tensions resurfacing in light of the crisis. Sources claimed that certain senior family members, long skeptical or even critical of Meghan, were struggling to reconcile their personal feelings with the immediate need for empathy and support. There were disagreements over how much access Harry and Meghan should have to family members in England, debates over public statements, and even disputes over how media inquiries should be handled. The crisis, while medical in nature, quickly became political, emotional, and strategic. Public messaging, too, was carefully coordinated. The royal family released a short, measured statement acknowledging the hospitalization without revealing sensitive details. The words were chosen deliberately, expressing concern, highlighting that Meghan was receiving care, and subtly signaling that her condition was being closely monitored. But in the age of social media, even measured statements can become magnified. Headlines exploded, fans and critics alike dissected every word, and every nuance became a talking point. The royal family had to walk a tightrope, projecting empathy without overexposure, controlling the narrative without appearing detached, and managing private grief in the glare of public attention. Meanwhile, in California, Meghan's own circle was mobilizing. Close friends, advisors, and personal staff were coordinating hospital logistics, liaising with doctors, and ensuring that her needs were met. Even here, tension ran high. Every phone call, every update, every decision carried weight. The balance between privacy and necessary disclosure was fragile, and throughout it all, Meghan herself, though receiving top-tier medical care, remained the central figure in a storm of anxiety, speculation, and intense scrutiny. As the hours unfolded, the royal family reportedly considered sending representatives to Los Angeles to support Meghan. The decision was fraught with complexity. Would their presence be helpful, or would it exacerbate the media frenzy? Would it signal a breach of privacy, or demonstrate genuine concern? Ultimately, sources suggest that a select few senior members were discreetly briefed and prepared to travel if necessary, though the situation remained fluid. Each decision carried not just personal implications, but public ones, an intricate dance of loyalty, duty, and optics. Amid the logistical and strategic maneuvering, emotions ran high. Advisors described the atmosphere as intense, tense, and at times frightening, as family members grappled with the suddenness of the crisis. Fear, guilt, and concern were intertwined. The very fact that Meghan, someone who had been at the center of controversies and conflicts, was now in a vulnerable position, forced the family to confront not only her humanity, but also the fragility of their own carefully maintained image. And yet, even in this crisis, moments of tenderness reportedly appeared. Sources indicated that private messages of support, small gestures, and personal appeals were exchanged among family members. These glimpses of humanity, rarely seen by the public, hint at the complexity of the royal family's internal dynamics. Beneath the protocol, the PR strategies, and the headlines, there was genuine concern, genuine fear, and genuine hope that Meghan would recover quickly and safely. The global reaction to the royal family's response was immediate. News networks analyzed every statement, dissected every nuance, and speculated endlessly about the implications. Social media erupted with commentary, prayers, and theories. Even international leaders reportedly took notice, signaling just how intertwined Meghan's personal crisis had become with global perception. For the family, the stakes were immense. Protect Meghan, maintain protocol, control the narrative, and manage a story that could dominate headlines for weeks. And then came the whispers that changed everything. Insiders hinted at conversations within the palace that went beyond concern for health. Discussions about past grievances, unresolved tensions, and historical conflicts reportedly resurfaced in the context of this crisis. Could Meghan's hospitalization reopen old wounds? Could it force reconciliation or further division? Within the family? The answers were unclear, but the mere possibility added another layer of suspense, drama, and intrigue. In short, the royal family's reaction was a mix of fear, strategy, and emotion. Behind the polished public image, there were urgent phone calls, private deliberations, and deeply human reactions to a crisis that could not be ignored. Every move mattered, every word mattered, and every choice had potential consequences. Not just for Meghan, but for the family, the monarchy, and the public's perception of both. As the night wore on, it became evident that the situation was far from over. The royal family, while managing appearances and strategizing their response, could not predict the twists that lay ahead. The crisis was still unfolding, and every passing hour brought new questions, new concerns, and new potential drama. And just when it seemed the family had stabilized their response, an unexpected development in Meghan's condition emerged, something that would test both their emotional resolve and their ability to maintain control. It was a reminder that, in the world of royalty, even the most carefully laid plans are vulnerable to the unpredictable, to the human, and to the shocking reality of life. Even before this current crisis, Meghan Markle's life had been a complex mix of glamour, scrutiny, and relentless pressure. From her early days as an actress in Toronto and Los Angeles to her entry into the most scrutinized royal institution in the world, Meghan's journey was never ordinary. She became a global figure almost overnight, celebrated by some as a modern, progressive addition to the monarchy and criticized by others as a controversial disruptor. But now, as the world fixated on her hospitalization, it became impossible to ignore the shadows of her past, those struggles that had quietly shaped her resilience, her choices, and her public persona. To understand the gravity of her current situation, one must revisit the years leading up to it. Meghan was not born into royalty. She had experienced a childhood marked by both privilege and challenges. Raised in Los Angeles, she pursued acting while navigating a blended family dynamic and the pressures of growing up in the public eye. She spoke openly in interviews about feelings of isolation, moments of self-doubt, and the constant need to prove herself. These early experiences, while seemingly distant from the opulence of royal life, were formative. They cultivated a resilience that would later be tested under unprecedented circumstances, including the intense scrutiny of the media, the public, and the royal family itself. Her acting career, while moderately successful, never fully shielded her from the pressures of fame. Even minor roles were analyzed, interviews dissected, and every public appearance subject to commentary. When Meghan began dating Prince Harry, her life transformed overnight. The romance, initially celebrated, quickly became a subject of global fascination. Paparazzi followed her relentlessly. Rumors circulated. Social media buzzed with both admiration and vitriol. This constant attention, even before stepping into the palace, introduced a level of scrutiny few people outside of royalty ever face. Once Meghan officially joined the royal family, her challenges multiplied. Protocol, tradition, and the unspoken rules of the monarchy demanded conformity, and she often struggled to navigate these expectations. Every outfit, every gesture, every word was analyzed. Small missteps were amplified into scandals. Rumors of conflicts with staff, whispers of disagreements with family members, and the ever-present media speculation created an environment of constant stress. Sources close to Meghan have described periods of intense isolation, when she felt trapped between her own values and the rigid expectations of royal life. Even moments of joy, weddings, births, official engagements, were overshadowed by public debate, criticism, and judgment. Her mental and emotional health became a growing concern. Meghan has been open in previous interviews about the toll this environment took on her well-being. Anxiety, depression, and feelings of vulnerability were recurring themes. Support systems were limited, both by geographical distance and by the unique pressures of royalty. Prince Harry, a steadfast ally, was also navigating his own challenges, from media scrutiny to familial expectations, creating a situation where the couple faced intense pressure together, yet often in isolation. These struggles resurfaced in recent years, particularly as the couple stepped back from royal duties. Their move to North America, their media interviews, and their new ventures were all part of an attempt to regain control over their lives. Yet this independence brought new pressures. Now, Meghan was not only managing her personal health and family life, but also navigating a complex global media landscape that remained fixated on her. Every appearance, statement, or public engagement carried the weight of scrutiny she had hoped to escape. Insiders suggest that the stress of these past challenges may have contributed to the sudden medical crisis. While the precise cause of her hospitalization remains confidential, the combination of chronic stress, intense public pressure, and unresolved family tensions likely played a role. Stress, both mental and emotional, is known to exacerbate physical conditions. Meghan's history of navigating high-pressure situations, combined with the immediate shock of the health emergency, may have created the perfect storm leading to this hospitalization. But the past is not merely a backdrop. It is a living part of Meghan's narrative. Events from previous years, small incidents that once seemed inconsequential, suddenly take on new significance in light of her current condition. Reported conflicts with palace staff, disagreements with senior royals, and media controversies now appear as early warnings of the vulnerability she faces in moments of crisis. These moments, often dismissed by the public at the time, now provide context for the challenges she must navigate today, reminding us that the consequences of public scrutiny can be far-reaching and deeply personal. Her struggles also extend to family dynamics outside the royal family. Meghan's relationship with her own parents, her half-siblings, and close friends has been complicated, often strained by public attention and private disagreements. During previous crises, communication was fragmented, support was uneven, and conflicts sometimes spilled into public view. The current hospitalization forces a re-examination of these relationships. Who is present in her life at this critical moment? Who is able to provide genuine support, and who remains at a distance? These questions, while deeply personal, are inextricably linked to the narrative of her current health emergency. Social media has played a dual role in her life, amplifying both praise and criticism. Fans express concern, sending messages of love, support, and prayers. Critics, meanwhile, dissect every reported detail, often framing her struggles within narratives of controversy or scandal. This duality, simultaneous admiration and criticism, has been a constant in Meghan's public life. Now, during a genuine health crisis, it adds an additional layer of complexity. The public's fascination with her life has become a pressure cooker, intensifying the challenges she faces even as she battles physical illness. Experts suggest that this environment can have tangible effects on health. High levels of stress, combined with constant public scrutiny and limited privacy, can exacerbate underlying conditions, weaken the immune system, and create vulnerability to sudden health crises. Meghan's hospitalization, while unprecedented in its immediacy and severity, may thus be understood as part of a broader pattern, a life marked by exceptional pressure, relentless observation, and the need to constantly perform, both publicly and privately. The crisis also highlights the interplay between mental and physical health. Meghan's past struggles with anxiety, stress, and isolation may have contributed to a heightened vulnerability. Even someone with access to the best medical care, the most supportive partners, and considerable resources is not immune to the effects of prolonged pressure. Her current condition, while immediate and urgent, is intertwined with the cumulative impact of years of navigating high-stakes environments, managing complex relationships, and enduring relentless scrutiny. Moreover, her hospitalization forces a reckoning with the narratives that have surrounded her life. Public perception, shaped by media, critics, and even family members, has often painted Meghan in extremes, either as a victim, a villain, or a symbol of modern royalty. The reality, as this health crisis demonstrates, is far more nuanced. Meghan is a human being, facing real vulnerabilities, confronting intense pressure, and navigating the intersection of personal health and public expectation. Her story reminds the world that the line between public image and private reality can be perilously thin, and that even those who seem untouchable are not immune to the fragility of life. In the context of the current crisis, these past struggles take on a new, urgent dimension. Each prior challenge, each previous controversy, and each historical tension now intersects with the immediate need for care and support. Understanding her past is essential to understanding the gravity of this moment, the reactions of those around her, and the broader implications for the royal family and the public narrative. Her life, once dominated by speculation and performance, is now defined by vulnerability, resilience, and the very real possibility of life-altering consequences. And just when it seemed that Meghan's past struggles were background context, they erupted into the present. Insider reports suggest that events from years ago resurfaced in conversations, decisions, and even hospital procedures, influencing how the family, staff, and advisors responded. Old tensions collided with immediate medical urgency, creating a situation that was as emotionally charged as it was physically critical. The hospitalization, while a medical event, became a prism through which the entirety of Meghan Markle's life, and the pressures she has endured, were refracted in dramatic, unforgettable ways. As we continue, it becomes clear that Meghan's past struggles are not merely history. They are active, shaping forces in the unfolding crisis. Every phone call, every family meeting, every media update carries echoes of the challenges she has faced before. They influence decisions, shape reactions, and intensify the drama surrounding her hospitalization. Minutes turned into hours in the sterile, brightly lit hospital room. Meghan Markle lay in her bed, the rhythmic hiss of oxygen filling the air. For most, oxygen therapy is routine, life-sustaining yet uneventful. But for Meghan, that very mask would become the center of an incident that would send ripples through the royal family, the media, and the public alike. Sources now reveal that what initially seemed like a routine procedure was anything but. This wasn't just about stabilizing her condition. It was a flashpoint, a dramatic, almost cinematic moment that highlighted the fragility, intensity, and unprecedented scrutiny surrounding her life. The oxygen mask, carefully fitted by medical staff, was meant to ensure Meghan received sufficient air during a critical moment of vulnerability. Yet within minutes, something unusual happened. Insiders describe a brief, but intense, episode where the mask shifted, disrupting the flow of oxygen. It was a momentary lapse, a technical mishap that, in any other context, might have passed unnoticed. But in Meghan's case, the incident was magnified. Every movement, every adjustment, and every reaction was observed by medical personnel, family aides, and even media insiders who had gathered fragments of information. What could have been a minor moment suddenly became a focal point for tension, fear, and speculation. The immediate response was swift. Nurses and doctors rushed to correct the problem, carefully readjusting the mask while monitoring Meghan's oxygen saturation levels. Her vitals, while fluctuating, stabilized quickly, but the intensity of the episode left a lasting impression on those present. Sources report that Meghan remained calm outwardly, but the incident was a stark reminder of how delicate her condition had become and how quickly a minor technicality could escalate into a life-threatening situation. For Prince Harry, the incident was terrifying. Reports suggest he was on a phone call with a senior aide, receiving updates in real time while struggling with his own emotions. Harry, who had spent years advocating for Meghan's well-being, now faced a moment where advocacy, worry, and helplessness collided. Even someone with the resources, knowledge, and connections that Harry possesses was left feeling powerless as the oxygen incident unfolded. Every second mattered, every adjustment carried consequence, and every breath Meghan took was monitored with the highest level of concern. The royal family, too, was immediately informed. Sources indicate that King Charles, Prince William, and Princess Anne were briefed on the oxygen episode, adding a new layer of urgency to an already critical situation. Advisors debated how much of the incident to disclose publicly. Any mention of technical issues with her oxygen could be interpreted as a dire escalation, potentially inciting panic among the public and global media. Yet transparency was necessary, at least in part, to quell speculation and maintain credibility. Balancing truth with perception became an all-consuming task, highlighting the complexity of managing both health crises and global attention simultaneously. Meanwhile, Meghan's medical team worked tirelessly to ensure no further complications. Specialists were brought in, equipment double-checked, and emergency protocols reviewed. Every precaution was taken to prevent a repeat occurrence. But the incident, minor as it might have been in medical terms, symbolized the extreme fragility of Meghan's situation. Sources close to the hospital describe an atmosphere of intense focus, punctuated by moments of quiet urgency, as staff worked to stabilize not only her physical state, but also the emotional and psychological equilibrium of everyone in the room. The incident also reignited internal tensions. Insiders suggest that debates flared over who should be allowed in the room, how updates should be communicated, and how much control Prince Harry should exercise over decisions. Historical frictions between the Sussexes and certain members of the royal family resurfaced, complicating what was already an emotionally charged situation. Even a minor oxygen mishap became a catalyst for deeper conflicts, revealing the delicate balance of loyalty, protocol, and familial obligation in a high-pressure environment. Media reaction was immediate and relentless. As soon as details of the oxygen episode leaked, headlines multiplied. Meghan Markle on oxygen. Critical moment in hospital. Duchess life threatened by minor mishap. Royal health crisis intensifies. While some outlets attempted to verify the facts, others amplified speculation, framing the event as an alarming escalation in her already serious condition. Social media buzzed with every nuance, every interpretation, and every rumor. Fans expressed fear, supporters offered prayers, and critics seized the moment as yet another point of contention. The oxygen incident became both a literal and symbolic focal point for a crisis already magnified by global attention. Yet, the incident revealed something else: Meghan's resilience. Despite the physical challenge and the surrounding chaos, she reportedly remained composed, following instructions carefully and cooperating fully with medical staff. Her demeanor, sources note, reflected both her training under intense public scrutiny and her innate determination. Even in a moment of extreme vulnerability, Meghan demonstrated remarkable poise, a trait that had defined her public persona but was now tested in the most personal, human way possible. For Prince Harry, the experience was transformative. Sources describe him as deeply shaken, reflecting on past struggles and future responsibilities. The oxygen incident, brief though it may have been, underscored the real human stakes of their lives. Stakes that extended beyond media narratives, family disputes, or public perception. It reminded him, and the royal family, that despite wealth, status, and privilege, they were dealing with something profoundly human: the fragility of life and the unpredictability of medical emergencies. The royal family's advisors were quick to act. Protocols were adjusted, access to the rooms strictly limited, and updates carefully curated to balance transparency and privacy. Internal communications emphasized calm, but the urgency of the oxygen incident was unmistakable. For the first time, even seasoned members of the palace staff reportedly admitted to feeling a heightened level of concern, as if the crisis had moved from abstract worry to a palpable, immediate threat. And then there were the implications. While the oxygen episode was resolved medically, its symbolic impact reverberated far beyond the hospital room. It became a moment that reminded everyone involved, family, staff, media, and the public, that Meghan's life was delicate, her situation unpredictable, and her circumstances unlike any ordinary medical event. It highlighted the intersection of celebrity, royalty, and human vulnerability in a way that few previous incidents had ever done. Insiders now suggest that the oxygen incident was a turning point in the crisis. Prior to the episode, the situation had been tense but manageable. Afterward, the stakes felt higher, the reactions more urgent, and the pressure on everyone involved exponentially greater. It was a dramatic reminder that even minor technicalities can escalate into life-altering moments when circumstances are extreme. And while Meghan stabilized following the incident, the ripple effects continued. Every decision, every movement, and every interaction now carried the weight of potential consequences. The royal family, the media, and the public were left grappling with the reality that even someone as controlled, poised, and prepared as Meghan Markle could face moments of intense vulnerability, moments that could shift narratives, emotions, and decisions in unforeseen ways. The oxygen incident was over, but the story had just begun to explode. Almost immediately, the media descended with unprecedented intensity. Every news outlet, every online blog, every social media platform was hungry for details. In a world obsessed with royal drama, Meghan Markle's hospitalization became more than a personal health crisis. It became a global event, a real-time spectacle, and a narrative that blurred the lines between life, politics, and entertainment. Within minutes of the oxygen mishap, headlines flooded the internet. Meghan Markle in hospital on oxygen, a royal crisis. Duchess' health in danger after oxygen incident. Royal family in panic over Meghan's condition. Some outlets emphasized the severity, others the drama, while social media amplified speculation with viral hashtags and constant updates. On Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, fans expressed fear and concern, sharing prayers, messages of hope, and personal stories of empathy. Meanwhile, critics and conspiracy theorists dissected every detail, framing the incident within narratives of scandal, conspiracy, or alleged palace negligence. The result was a frenzy unlike anything the royal family, or Meghan herself, had faced. Even mainstream news struggled to contain the narrative. Television networks interrupted regular programming to provide live updates. Panels debated every potential scenario, and reporters stationed near Buckingham Palace and Los Angeles hospitals broadcasted nonstop coverage. Rumors ran rampant. Some claimed Meghan had suffered a severe health deterioration. Others suggested a minor mishap was exaggerated for dramatic effect, while conspiracy theorists implied darker possibilities. For viewers, the rapid-fire mix of verified facts and speculation created confusion, anxiety, and a near-compulsive need to follow the story minute by minute. Social media, however, proved to be the most volatile arena. Messages of concern, admiration, and loyalty poured in from around the world, yet alongside them were waves of criticism, judgment, and misinformation. Fans posted videos analyzing every photo, every snippet of footage, and even hospital perimeter activity. Trolls and critics seized the oxygen incident as fodder for ridicule or condemnation. Hashtags like #PrayForMeghan and #RoyalCrisis trended simultaneously, reflecting a world both empathetic and voyeuristic. Algorithms amplified sensational posts, ensuring that every detail, even minor, unverified ones, reached millions within seconds. The media frenzy had profound implications for the royal family. Traditionally, crises of this nature were managed with discretion, careful messaging, and a limited number of public statements. But Meghan's hospitalization defied tradition. The instantaneous nature of social media meant that no statement could control the narrative completely. Every carefully worded release was dissected, every omission questioned, and every clarification scrutinized. Advisors described the situation as impossible to contain, with the pressure intensifying as the story spread across multiple time zones and languages. Prince Harry, already emotionally taxed from the oxygen incident, now had to contend with the global media circus. Sources indicate that he spent hours coordinating responses, verifying reports, and attempting to manage the flow of information. Yet despite every effort, misinformation persisted. Fake reports, doctored images, and speculative videos flooded feeds, creating panic among fans and stress among family members. It became clear that the story had taken on a life of its own, separate from the facts, the family, and even Meghan herself. Even ordinary citizens became part of the frenzy. Social media users reported sightings, shared unverified hospital photos, and speculated on every aspect of Meghan's condition. Online forums became echo chambers of fear, hope, and judgment, with users debating the seriousness of her condition and what it might mean for the royal family. In this environment, every update, however minor, triggered waves of emotional response, commentary, and further speculation. The oxygen incident, once a contained medical event, had exploded into a worldwide spectacle. Journalists noted that the crisis highlighted a fundamental tension in modern media: the need for immediacy versus the responsibility of accuracy. In the rush to report breaking news, details were often unverified, context was missing, and speculation became indistinguishable from fact. Some outlets faced backlash for sensationalizing the incident, while others were lauded for careful reporting. The oxygen incident, minor as it had been, became a case study in how health crises involving public figures can spiral into global media frenzy, with consequences far beyond the hospital room. Meanwhile, the royal family and Meghan's team had to navigate a delicate balancing act. On one hand, they needed to protect Meghan's privacy and ensure her medical care was uninterrupted. On the other hand, they had to address the global audience, providing enough information to reassure the public while withholding sensitive details. Every statement, every interview, and every social media post was scrutinized for tone, timing, and implication. The stakes were enormous. One misstep could intensify panic, spark criticism, or compromise Meghan's well-being. The frenzy also triggered emotional reactions on a global scale. Supporters organized prayer chains, vigils, and online campaigns, demonstrating genuine concern and solidarity. Critics, however, leveraged the moment to reinforce negative narratives about Meghan, citing past controversies, family disputes, or alleged character flaws. For observers, this duality was dizzying. Empathy and cynicism collided, creating a cultural phenomenon in which public perception and personal health intersected in unprecedented ways. The hospital itself became a focal point. Security measures were heightened, staff movements were restricted, and communications were tightly controlled. Insider reports describe a tense environment. Medical personnel focused on care, family members worried silently, and the media camped outside, eager for any detail. Every visitor, every phone call, and every interaction was filtered through layers of protocol designed to protect Meghan while managing public curiosity. Yet, despite these precautions, leaks and rumors continued to surface, feeding the frenzy and keeping the story alive in real time. The oxygen incident, minor as it might have seemed medically, became symbolic. It was a vivid illustration of vulnerability, mortality, and the intense pressures Meghan had faced throughout her life. For the public, it was a reminder that even those who seem invincible, royalty, celebrities, or public figures, can face moments of fragility that resonate deeply across cultures, geographies, and social divides. For the royal family, it was a reminder of the unpredictable consequences of global scrutiny, and for Meghan herself, a reminder of how intertwined her life had become with the media and public perception. As the frenzy continued, new challenges emerged. Misinformation fueled public panic, conspiracy theories proliferated, and emotional responses ranged from deep empathy to harsh judgment. Every update, every rumor, and every analysis carried weight, influencing both perception and emotion. The oxygen incident had become more than a medical event. It was a catalyst for worldwide dialogue, debate, and reflection on vulnerability, power, and celebrity in the modern age. Even as the day progressed, experts noted that the situation highlighted the complexity of managing a crisis in the digital era. Unlike previous generations, where news could be managed through controlled releases, Meghan's hospitalization unfolded under the relentless gaze of a global audience with instant access, unlimited platforms, and the ability to interpret, misinterpret, and amplify every detail. The oxygen incident, while resolved medically, became an enduring symbol of this tension. A minor event transformed into a global spectacle, where reality and perception collided in unpredictable ways. And just when it seemed the world was consumed by speculation and anxiety, a new development emerged, one that would intensify the frenzy, challenge assumptions, and set the stage for even more dramatic revelations. While the world was fixated on headlines, hashtags, and social media speculation, a much more intense story was unfolding behind the closed doors of the hospital. Sources now reveal that Meghan Markle's hospitalization was far more than a routine medical crisis. It became a crucible of human drama, conflicting agendas, and unspoken tensions that threatened to overshadow even the most dramatic media narratives. This was the hidden story, the one the cameras didn't capture, the one the public couldn't see. But insiders say it was as riveting, and at times terrifying, as anything broadcast to the world. It began subtly. Hospital staff, already under pressure due to the high-profile nature of Meghan's admission, had to navigate a complex web of personalities, protocols, and security measures. Meghan's condition demanded continuous attention, with specialists monitoring vitals, adjusting medications, and ensuring oxygen therapy remained consistent. But alongside medical responsibilities, staff faced an unprecedented challenge. Managing the presence of high-ranking family members, private aides, and security personnel, all while maintaining absolute discretion. Sources describe the environment as tense and highly charged, with every interaction carrying enormous stakes. Prince Harry, of course, was central to this unfolding drama. Insiders report that he was in constant contact with doctors, nurses, and advisors, advocating for Meghan while simultaneously coordinating updates with the royal family in England. But tension reportedly grew as decisions about her care, room access, and media communication became contested. Some senior staff members reportedly disagreed on the best approach, debating whether to prioritize medical privacy, family requests, or public perception. Every choice seemed fraught with consequence, and small disagreements escalated into heated discussions behind closed doors. Adding to the drama, sources claim that certain members of Meghan's inner circle clashed over control. Aides, personal assistants, and family representatives all had opinions about who should have access to Meghan, what information should be shared, and how her health updates should be framed. Some advocated for maximum discretion, fearing the global media frenzy, while others argued that transparency could prevent misinformation and reassure concerned supporters. These competing priorities, all occurring simultaneously, created an environment described by insiders as like walking through a minefield. Any misstep could ignite conflict or compromise Meghan's care. Security also played a critical role in the drama. Given Meghan's status, hospital protocols were intensified, with armed personnel monitoring entrances, coordinating visitor access, and ensuring her privacy from intrusive media. But sources indicate that even security arrangements